In this episode, we tackle a subject matter that might not be considered your typical disaster in the true sense of the word. News that something has happened with your child's school bus. From bad driving, bad weather, negligence, and even heroism, this incredible footage will have you second guessing how far you throw your trust when your child's safety is at stake. This first case took place in 2018 in Leander, Texas, where a mixture of bad weather and bad judgment resulted in a bad day at the office for this bad school bus driver. Texas, not usually associated with lots of rain, was experiencing some torrential downpours and thus some flooding in local low-water crossings. The driver, Nathan DeYoung, was navigating his route home when he arrived at a T-junction. Turning right, the driver continued down the road, but what he hadn't realized was that he'd missed or ignored one vital piece of information. There was a caution sign warning of flooding ahead. Uh-oh, let's see how this goes. As the driver arrives at what would usually be a low-level water crossing, he's now greeted with a torrent of flooding. You'd think that this would be a good time to turn around, but Nathan reckons he can persevere through to the other side. Nathan was wrong. The bus is picked up in the current and they're now floating downriver in a school bus. There's a sentence you don't hear every day. Thankfully, the bus came to a stop and they were able to call for help. Besides our driver Nathan, the only other occupant was a 12-year-old child, and they were both successfully rescued without any injury. As for Nathan, that momentary lapse in judgment meant that he would be charged with child endangerment and driving through a barricade. Looking back at the footage, it's understandable to see how he might have missed the barricade due to its positioning on one side of the road. However, it's less easy to reason with his decision to cross the flooding road. And while this accident could definitely have been avoided, that certainly isn't the case in our next school bus disaster. Tammy Cummings is a local school bus driver in Greenville County, South Carolina. She's been driving her route for years and has seen a lot happen on these local roads, but nothing would quite prepare her for what she would face in the coming moments. We see footage from multiple angles inside the bus, starting from Tammy's point of view, where everything seems normal and no danger is visible. But in a matter of milliseconds, things turned disastrous. A semi-truck had lost control and jackknifed into the opposing lane, causing a direct collision. Let's take a look from another angle. Unbelievably, as we see Tammy bracing for a huge impact, it ends up being a relatively small collision. The combination of Tammy's quick thinking to slam on the brakes and pure luck that the truck would jackknife exactly where it did meant that the bus had sustained minimal damage. While all the occupants were okay with no serious injuries,
had she been any further forward or to the right anymore, it could have been a significantly different scenario.
The danger wasn't over yet. They were now stuck inside the truck, and not because their doorways were jammed. Tammy continues to keep her cool whilst making a 911 call for assistance.
818 to base. I'm on Fairview Road. A transfer truck has just ran off the road and hit me. Everybody on my bus is okay, but we do need an ambulance and the fire trucks. The power lines are down. We cannot move.
Once she begins to check on the children, she shows exemplary support and guidance by calming a crying child with the suggestion of a game.
Come on, hey, we good, buddy. Come on, let's play a game. Come on, sit down. We're good, let's play a game.
This is one case where our driver Tammy should be fully praised in not only helping to avoid what could have been a fatal accident, but also in her response efforts post-accident. Sadly, the same cannot be said for our next driver, whose complacency leads to disaster. In a terrifying incident that occurred in 2015, Ali Rednauer, a 6-year-old girl, faced a traumatizing ordeal when she was disembarking her school bus. It began on an ordinary afternoon as she disembarked from the bus in front of her family home. But as we see from inside the bus, when the driver closes the door, it catches her backpack. Unaware, the bus driver began to drive away, horrifyingly dragging Ali along with them. The young girl, brave and resilient, attempted to keep up by running alongside the moving vehicle to avoid being pulled underneath. Eventually, she is unable to keep up and can be seen being dragged for almost a mile. Amazingly, footage from inside the bus shows how a student is blocking the driver's view of the door. While the situation is surreal, and it's lucky that Ali escaped this incident with her life, it really could have been so much worse. Witnesses described the scene as one of sheer panic and helplessness, as attempts to alert the bus driver went unnoticed initially. A car finally honks its horn manically and catches the attention of the driver.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
The community was shocked and deeply disturbed by the ordeal that the young child had to endure, and the story made national news.
A 7-year-old girl from Louisville, Kentucky, who was accidentally dragged by her school bus. The girl's backpack got caught in the door. The driver unknowingly pulled her almost 1,000 feet. Thankfully, the girl is expected to make a full recovery.
The primary cause of this distressing event was linked to a lapse in safety protocols on part of both the bus and its operator. The driver failed to perform the necessary checks before moving the vehicle, a basic but crucial step in ensuring the safety of all passengers, especially young children. She also had items on her dashboard which were blocking her view to the side mirror. The consequences of this event were significant and multifaceted. It prompted an immediate review of school transportation safety policies within the state and across the country, which produced some scary results in certain instances. Well, if you're thinking these horrifying images must be a scary one-off case, then think again.
Incredibly, 31 incidents, including 2 deaths of kids dragged by their school buses.
And if you're wondering how these instances might take place more often than you'd expect, then the strength of these school bus door mechanisms may well leave you in shock while providing an answer.
Just how strong are those doors? They trapped and crushed just about everything we tried to put between them. This can of soda literally exploded from the pressure.
Despite the mechanical side of things, there's no doubt blame is also to be placed on the driver, and that would prove to be the case as she faced disciplinary action while the family took matters to court. And after waiting all of 6 years for an outcome, right before the trial, the payout came from the Jefferson County Public Schools Board and was one of the biggest in the district's history.
The JCPS student dragged by a school bus in this video received a $5 million payout.
$2.7 million is what the family will get immediately and their attorneys. The rest will go into a trust fund for Ali, paid out until 2088.
But from one school bus driver who should have put on the brakes way sooner, to another who definitely shouldn't have. This case takes place in Colorado just last year, and of course once again includes a school bus full of children, ranging between kindergarten and 6th grade. We jump into footage from inside the bus where our driver is becoming increasingly upset with children not sitting properly in their seats.
You guys need to be in your seats.
You'd think some words over the speaker would be enough, but this particular driver decided it was time to teach these young kids an unnecessary and dangerous lesson.
You guys want to see how dangerous that is? Do you get that? That's why you need to be in your seat.
Yep, he inexplicably slams on the brake keys, sending every kid flying forward. Let's see this again from another angle. They react in disbelief, checking on one another, while the driver seems unfazed, even justifying his actions once again. And if that wasn't enough, he then threatens to write them up if they don't comply. What a charming fellow.
Turn around and sit down properly. If you guys can't do that, you will get written up. You get that?
What he doesn't realise is that he's actually injured a few children, and one particularly on the back of the bus. But one smart young girl decides to call her parents and explain what happened. As the bus comes to a stop, the girl from the back leaves crying and runs to her dad. The driver still seems to show little care and almost pulls away before perhaps finally showing some signs of conscience when talking to the dad through the door.
Is she okay? Is she alright?
Yeah, she was hurt though. So, I go easy on the brakes first.
I'm sorry if she got hurt, but there was 60 kids on here bouncing all over the place.
Or maybe not. Just lies to cover his actions, and he even gets called out by a child too.
They were running all over the place.
What?
They have to sit in their seat. They would not get bounced around if they didn't stay in their seat.
We were.
Thankfully, this driver would not get away with his dark choice of discipline, as one child who returned home shaken up told his mother what had happened.
My son came tearing through the door that afternoon. He sprinted all the way home. He was out of breath. He was terrified.
She then started her own investigation, asking the school board for footage from inside the bus.
He had slammed his head into the seat back in front of him. Another buddy had slammed his head into the window.
Clearly, this ordeal was something that didn't teach the kids any lesson, and instead put each and every one of them in harm's way.
We take for granted inside the school is safe. We trust they have all been vetted and are safe. And I hate that we can't believe that, but we can't.
You'll be happy to hear that not only did the school immediately suspend the driver and ban him from ever driving again,
he was pulled from driving all school buses in Douglas County the day after the incident. The district then sent the information to the Castle Rock Police Department and fired Fitzgerald.
but he also ended up facing over 30 charges of child endangerment, which will go to trial later this year.
A Colorado school bus driver is now facing 30 child abuse charges after intentionally slamming on the brakes to, quote, teach the kids a lesson.
And while the driver did admit that he is, quote, old school, we think that maybe he'll get a taste of some old school medicine when it comes to his court date. In this shocking video from April 21st, 2022, we see the moments from inside a Chesterfield school bus that gets hit and flipped by an out-of-control pickup truck. The images are shocking, and to protect the identity of the children inside, certain areas have been blurred. We can see things look to be normal, but it's not long before there's a massive impact from the truck. The collision sends the school bus off the road, flipping onto its side and coming to a stop in a ravine. The bus is now slowly filling with water. Incredibly, people can quickly be seen coming to the rescue of those inside. Even more miraculously, there are no life-threatening injuries, although everyone on the bus would need medical attention.
A bus and another vehicle collided. The bus went over the guardrail, down an embankment.
On board were 2 adults, including the driver, and 5 special needs children. The images from after their rescue give us a new perspective of what happened and how lucky everyone was to walk away with their life intact.
The good news is everyone involved in this accident appears to be okay.
The driver of the truck was charged with reckless driving and was equally lucky no one lost their life, or he may have been charged with much worse. Unfortunately, in our next case, there's nothing anyone can do to stop a semi-truck that's brakes have gone bust. The location is Ohio, and the scene is painted ominously as a school bus is stopped at a drop-off point on a declining hill. Cars on the opposite side of the road follow their duties and come to a stop as well. However, unbeknownst to any of these drivers, there's an 80,000-pound semi-truck on the loose behind them, heading directly their way, and its brakes have stopped working. You can hear the terror in the truck driver's voice as he hits the horn and shouts in vain, trying to warn the cars and bus ahead. But it's too late, and now all we can do is watch from behind our pillows. That was a pretty close call. The school bus driver is utterly relieved. This was a disaster that was prevented by the smallest of margins and with a high degree of luck. However, kudos to the truck driver who also showed expertise in maneuvering the runaway truck through such a narrow gap. But what's not initially noticeable from the footage is that the pickup driver in opposing traffic also backed up into the SUV behind him, creating that small space for the runaway vehicle to get through. Quick thinking all round surely helped avoid what could have been a potentially fatal disaster. Whereas pure luck is what results in no major injuries from our next case, but that doesn't make the footage any less terrifying. We're back in Greenville County School District in 2018 again. Clearly not a good year to be taking a ride on a school bus in this particular county. As driver Brenda Copeland was driving along her designated route, the unthinkable happened when absolutely out of nowhere, a pine tree falls due to high winds and completely crushes the school bus. The footage is terrifying. Fortunately, the injuries sustained to those inside were not too serious, and there were no fatalities in this disaster. But when you look at some of the images from the bus after the accident, it's really quite hard to believe that this is the case.
Students are recovering this morning after their bus was crushed by a tree while they were still on board.
A close call. A miracle, perhaps. Well, you might also be saying that about our next case, which is as heart-stopping as it is miraculous. The date is September 23, 2016, and once again we're in Texas, where the sun is not shining as you might expect, and instead a light rainstorm is making visibility more difficult than usual. As the driver briefly looks back to tell the children where to jump off, she takes her eyes off the road and heads down into a ditch which is partially filled with water. The children scream in terror as the water splashes up against the windows, making things look a lot more dicey than they might actually be. As the driver and other adult on the bus compose themselves, they tend to the children.
Hey, can you get up? Oh shit, we have someone injured, right here.
The sun soon comes out, but the occupants are now trapped inside. In the end, thankfully, all escaped with minor injuries, and a scary story to tell for life. It just goes to show how in the blink of an eye, things can take a turn for the worse. But while this clip exhibited how quickly things can turn to disaster, our next one shows just how painfully slow they can be as well. This case takes place on a residential street in Massachusetts in late January 2018. The buses were given clearance by multiple parties to go on their scheduled routes, despite bad weather conditions hampering the region.
It was just after 7 this morning when the Sutton school superintendent gave buses the green light, knowing salt trucks had already been on the road for an hour to deal with the flash freeze.
But as you're about to see, one particular school bus found itself in a spot of trouble, to the disbelief of one worried neighbor looking out their window.
School bus just came down Peachtree Drive, sliding all the way down.
The vehicle carrying dozens of students to school had lost traction on an icy road, leading to a loss of control despite the driver's best efforts to stabilize the bus. We see footage from frightened children inside the bus, a chilling experience for them no doubt, but besides a few screams, they all handled the situation quite admirably.
Oh my God. Oh my God!
As you can see, the contact is minimal, and it's all a little anticlimactic thankfully, with no injuries and no harm done in the end.
When your mailbox looks like this in January, the plow truck is often to blame, but this morning it was the school bus.
It could, however, have been much, much worse, and that was at the forefront of people's minds within the community.
Sadly, it was a much different scene just 3 minutes away on Dodge Road, where a school bus driver, school bus monitor, and preschooler were hospitalized after their van crashed into a telephone pole.
Some felt they never should have been sent out.
It was black ice, and I don't think they realized how bad it was.
While others seemed to understand the rapidly changing conditions which clearly contributed to this scary accident. Lessons would hopefully be learned about how to prevent this from happening again in the future. And while there was no Superman needed with this case, we do have footage of a young hero in our final one.
A 7th grader in Michigan is earning praise for his heroic actions on a school bus.
The middle school student being hailed as a hero.
This last case could easily have turned out very differently were it not for the quick thinking of a young boy calm beyond his years. It starts in Michigan with a school bus full of 60 children and a school bus driver that is feeling the heat. She radios headquarters to update them on her situation. But before she can pull over as planned, she loses consciousness. The school bus no longer has a driver. It's at this point that 7th grader Dylan Reeves notices the emergency and springs quickly into action. He runs up to the driver, grabs the wheel, and applies the brakes. Cool as ice, he brings the bus to a complete stop, and immediately his attention shifts to the safety of the bus driver.
Someone call 911!
Now, he's not messing around, and he wants things done, yet also calm as can be, already showing incredible leadership qualities at such a young age. And his actions would not go unnoticed, as the story made national news.
His school bus driver fainted behind the wheel, and this brave boy jumped up and brought the bus safely to a stop.
And if, like us, you're thinking, wow, this kid would make a fantastic public servant, it turns out, so does he.
Dylan says he wants to be a fireman someday.
And we fully support him. So, which of these terrifying school bus disasters had your heart pounding at your chest? Let us know in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe. Until next time on Disaster Zone.